run you through some of the things some of the processes that I use personally to come up with different ideas in the hackathon. So this is a bit about myself. I'm a software developer by trade. I've funded multiple startups, and I've participated in over 10 different hackathons. Also, I came first place in 6 of those hackathons, and I've also organized, judged, and mentored many other hackathons. This is my LinkedIn QR code if you're interested in adding me on LinkedIn. I also have a separate video on my YouTube channel as well that talks about how to give a very good pitch for the hackathon. Great. So how I think of hackathons. I think of hackathons as the start of a startup. I'm sure all of you guys have reasons for coming in and joining hackathons. Some of you could be trying to understand what is it that, trying to try out some of your new and latest technologies you learn. Some of you will be interested in coming up with problems and solving things that makes the world a better place. Opportunities to build something useful. They're, in a sense, all related to the beginnings of a startup, if you choose to go down that route. This is important because it's to do with the way of thinking. And to give you some examples of startups, really successful startups, multi-million-dollar startups that's come out of hackathons. For example, Carousel is one. I'm sure a lot of you may have used. GroupMe is something that just got bought out by Skype for $80 million. There's Zali, there's Easy Taxi, and there's a huge variety of different hackathons that you can find online, startups that you can find online that came out of hackathons. I just wanted to show you guys what it could be. So let me go into the idea. Why is ideation important? Sorry, if all of you guys can go on mute, that will be really good. We'll have towards the end, we'll have a question and answer session. So why is ideas important? This is important. This is a very important question because in everything I do, I ask why. So one of the first things is ideation, or coming up with the idea, is the first thing that happens in the hackathon. You can't do anything without an idea. It means that you better understand the challenge, and it gives you a direction, gives you and your team a direction for the hackathon. It helps keep everyone on focus, and it avoids confusion. Trying to imagine a scenario where your team is very confused about the idea, has a rough idea of what they want to do, and everyone's trying different things. It's not a very good state to be in, especially if the hackathon is only 2-3 days long. You want to get this ideation session done and over with as fast as possible so that you can start building the prototype that you need. However, this step is definitely not to be taken lightly because it is one of the elements that contributes to you winning the hackathon. So let me go through some of the things that a judge looks for in your idea. So in your idea, it gets broken up into 2 things. One is the problem-based, and the second thing is the solution. For the problem, first key thing, is it related to the hackathon theme? Second, who faces this problem? Who is the persona? How big is the problem? If it's a problem that only, say, 10 people out of 1 million people faces, then it may not be a very, very big problem. Hence, the impact would be small, trying to find a solution to the problem. make sure that the problem is validated and it's not just an assumption. A very common mistake I see people make is they try and make assumptions on what could be a problem, but then when it actually goes to market, it's not actually a problem. The second bit is the solution. How much of it does the problem solve? It would be a perfect solution if the solution solves every single bit of the problem. But oftentimes, a solution only solves part of the problem, and you need to understand how much of it solves. Is it feasible? Is it possible for you to come up with a mock of the solution during the hackathon? And also, how easy is the solution to implement? Say for example, if one of the problems is, say, world hunger, right? And the solution would be some ridiculous solution about, I don't know, mining asteroids or sort of building a huge underground city or something. Then the question is, how much would we need to make that thing happen? And is there an easier way to solve the problem? And also, is the solution, is it something that people will do, people will invest money to do? And is it something that will take a lot of time, or is it something that is super fast? Also, make sure there's no similar problems. The last thing you want in a hackathon is to come up with this awesome solution, and in the final pitching, the judges go, oh wait, but there's this other exact similar problem, solution out there that does exactly what you say. So make sure to check that there's no similar solutions. Find out what that unique factor is in your solution compared to those ones. Now what I'll do is I'll go through some of the processes I myself use and I found quite useful for going through this initial phase of the hackathon process to come up with an idea to work with. So the first thing I would do is to actually understand, sorry, if everyone can go on mute, that'll be great. The first thing I would do is to understand your team and define your passion. Passion is super important because you're going to be together with this team for the duration of the hackathon, and you're going to be super dependent on everyone else in the team. And because it's not a one-man show, and the best product comes out of the fact that everyone contributes and pulls everything together. So make sure that you understand, talk to your team members, meet your team members, make sure you understand their reasoning for joining the hackathon, what their strengths are, where their interests are, and from that, what is that common passion all of you guys have in a particular area of the challenge. This will also form the center point of you coming up with problems and ideas, because ultimately you don't want to come up with a problem and solution to something which the whole team is not passionate about, because you guys are the people that will be making that a reality and building that solution. Then what I'll do is the second phase. Before the second phase, I'd like to introduce to you guys design thinking. So I'm going to be basing it off this very common, well-known framework, and it's defined into multiple phases. I'm sure all of you, or most of you, have heard of this. The first thing is emphasize, and then it's define, and it's ideate. Just for the purpose of this talk, I'll just only focus on these 3 points. All right, let's get into it. So the second point is emphasize. So after you've got to know your team, the second step is to understand the hackathon challenge. Now this is very, very important. Reread it, make sure that you understand it and you cover what it is in it. There's nothing worse than giving an excellent answer to the wrong question. So make sure you understand the hackathon challenge. Also understand the big picture problem space of the challenge. That's really important to give you a sort of coordinate of where you'll be and everything else. So the key aim of this phase is seek to understand. Also very non-judgmental. So make sure you take in as much information as you can during this phase of emphasizing, and then try and also find out just very big picture problems in this particular space. Generally, internet would be a good thing. Also, I think during the welcoming ceremony, we may also mention bits and pieces and also check the website for anything in particular that may give you hints on what are some of the problems is about. Or maybe you already know the problem or the area of the challenge quite well and is already super into solving some of the things. Then focus in on that. Make sure you communicate with your team. After you have got to know the big picture and what the problem is, what the challenge is, the second step is to define. So try and understand, okay, so this particular challenge or this range of challenges, what are some of the key persona? So persona is an image or personality that a person presents in public or in a specific setting. So it's also, in other words, it's also the target market. In this challenge, what are the key people or the key target market that you're looking to focus on, that you're passionate about, that you want to make their lives better? Try to step into their shoes and understand what they are. For example, if you're trying to tackle a problem to do with universities, right? One of your personas could be the student, or for example, a first-year student. So try to step into their shoes, understand, hey, as a first-year student, my first day at university, wow, I've never been to such a large place. I don't understand where to go for lectures. I don't know what books to buy. Try to imagine yourself in their shoes, and it really puts a lot of reality into defining some of the pain points that they may have. And with pain points, check if it's something that they can do without. So really good pain points are things that there's no substitute for. For example, the substitute to a pen is a pencil, right? But if you're trying to say, hey, yeah, but there's certain things that may not have a potential substitute. Say, for example, if people didn't have, if people were infected with this particular virus, then it's a very big problem. And currently there's no substitutes to get around it. Maybe stay at home. So define the pain point, really understand that, hey, is it something that they can do without? And then finally, try to do validation on this. Try to do validation on the problem to make sure that it's not an assumption. You can collect evidences of this online. See if you can find, for example, some online data reports or maybe news articles as well, which is another really good thing because it says that it's a timely problem that's happening right now and everyone's knowing about it. You can also do surveys on your potential target market. Say, for example, your potential target market is school students. Hey, maybe you can reach out to some LinkedIn groups or Facebook groups or maybe your own network and who are students and see if this is actually a problem they face or could it be a subset of this problem. After defining the problem, and make sure the problem is well defined and validated because that helps coming up with a solution. So the solution is something that I've broken up into two parts. The first is diverge. What that means is after you've defined the problem, come up with as many solutions as possible to the problem. All ideas are worth sharing, and it can be the weirdest and most strangest and most non-feasible solution out there. But this is a time where you really want to let your mind run wild and just come up with anything. You can use different brainstorming tools. I'll mention that a bit later in the talk to assist with this ideation session and brainstorming session. So come up with as many as possible, and try to be in the mindset of the yes and thinking. So instead of saying, oh, this idea doesn't work, or this idea can be better, doesn't work, try to think about, yes, this is a good idea, and how can you add on to it? How can you improve on it? So this is what you want to do in the diverging session. After the diverging session comes the converge section. So now you've got potentially hundreds of different ideas or solutions that could potentially solve this problem that you had. Now it's time to group your ideas. So there's potentially a lot of, there could potentially be a bunch of ideas that are quite similar that you want to group together. This makes prioritizing them also easier. So prioritize your ideas based on matrices such as, is it feasible? How much impact would it give? What are your team interests? After that, look at the direct and indirect competitors. Sorry, if you guys can go on mute, that will be great. Cool. Awesome. So are there any competitors? Is anyone doing this already? What makes this idea unique? This is super important, as mentioned previously in the previous slides, because you don't want to build something that already exists. If there's something that already exists, that's fine, but try and build that, and also understand what are the unique points in that, right? So maybe it's exactly the same as, say, for example, you're building something exactly the same as Facebook, but you've got this really unique thing which Facebook doesn't have, right? That's fine as well. Or it can be, it can also be, there used to be a lot of competitors, there isn't any competitors anymore. And that could be because of the timing thing. For example, before last year came along, maybe remote work or things remote isn't as popular as what it used to be now. If that's the case, address those issues and how and why your solution, which previous competitors didn't do so well, would be much better nowadays in terms of a timely fashion. Make sure you validate your ideas. I'll go into this in the next slide. That is very important because similar to problems, you can come up with ideas that have a lot of assumptions, and those assumptions may not be valid. Also validate your ideas with personas where possible. Talk to people. Talk to as much people as possible. You'll also be given mentors during the hackathon. So talk to, maybe there may be subject matter experts in the field that you wanted to work on. So talk to them and see what they think about these ideas. Okay, so this is a tool I use to validate my idea. It's called the Lean Startup. It's from the Lean Startup machine, and it's called the validation board. So you guys can use this if you want, or you can use variations of this. Where so this is purely just showing an example. Sorry, if you guys can go on mute, that will be great. Yeah, cool. So first thing is, what is your customer hypothesis? Who is your persona? So pick a customer. From that, pick the problem which we've gone into, and also the solution, right? So after you've picked all those, work as a team to define all of the assumptions that you have about this particular problem. Say, for example, coming to the idea of a university student's first day at university and not knowing where to go. One of the assumptions could be that they don't know where to go. And second assumption could be that there isn't really a map nearby, or there isn't anyone there to help them or assist them. So those are all assumptions. Come up with as many as possible. After that, find out the riskiest assumption. So what that means is go through all of those assumptions and work out and ask yourself, which one of those assumptions, if broken, would invalidate your solution? Say, for example, if the assumption, in our case, if the assumption that new students coming onto school will be lost, if that is invalidated, then that breaks the whole solution of trying to build a mobile app to tell them where to go, right? And if that assumption is broken, that's fine. You can stay with the same customer hypothesis and the problem hypothesis and go to a different solution built upon some of the knowledge that you used before in the previous round. Next, I would like to show another tool, which is called Miro. This is a very good tool that I use, and it's free as well, where you can actually do brainstorming with your teams. It's excellent for online collaboration. You can do brainstormings with your teams, flowcharts, diagrams, and sticky notes. So this is something that I would like to, this is something that's good. Another one is somewhat relevant, just focus on the problem solution, unique value proposition, and unfair advantage. That brings us to our summary. And so what we've covered is the steps to ideation, to coming up with the idea, which is the first phase of the hackathon. It is a super important phase of the hackathon, and it helps to set the direction and focus of your team. The steps are first to know your team and know what the shared passion is. From that, emphasize and understand what the challenge is. Make sure that you're scoping your problems and solutions to the bounds of the challenge. And also understand what your areas of interest is in the challenge. After that, define the pain points in this particular challenging area that your team has chosen. Define the personas of some of the people that has the pain points and really try and understand them. Finally, ideate, come up with as much solutions as possible. It can be the craziest and stupidest solution as there is, but it's fine. Have a lot of fun with it, because sometimes it may not really be as strange or stupid as you may think, or it may give rise to some other cool ideas. So come with as much as possible, and finally converge and group those different ideas together, prioritize those ideas, and validate those different ideas to come up with one that you really like. And then after that, after you've got something in that, I would assume this could probably be, you'll probably need a day for this, but don't, I think maximum a day, because you only have 2-3 days to do the full hackathon. So keep it within time limit, and also don't be afraid to come back to this, because sometimes you may have settled on a particular idea and then started building it and then found found out, oh, there was this thing that doesn't work. That is fine. Try to minimize that, and some of these validation steps and everything will try and minimize that. But if that happens, that's fine. You can come back to it. Just make sure you stick to the same area so that you already have some of the same research materials, and see if you can pivot into some of those other problems by refining the ideation, ideate, diverge, and converge session again. Cool. And finally, a closing word that I would like to leave you guys with, which is find a simple solution to solve a very painful problem. The key here is a simple solution. Sometimes solutions doesn't have to be too complicated. It can just be, for example, a button to turn on the light switch, right? It can be super simple. It doesn't have to be complicated. And also ideally, it has to be a painful problem, something that there's no solutions for, or something that trips people every time they do it, such that they don't like it and they don't know how to get around it. So that's the final closing remarks, and thank you.